So, Vanessa, I want to go to you if you don't mind. Could you just talk about what has immigration enforcement been up until now? And then there's a lot of rumors out there. So, like, I saw the reports about the school bus in Austin, right? Could you talk about what has changed recently? How the landscape's changed, please?
One of the first things that I think it's important for folks to know is that immigration, it's not as if immigration enforcement has just started now, right? The Obama administration led one of the largest ramp-ups in immigration enforcement in our nation's history and deported historically large numbers of people. What I think has changed, though, is a general atmosphere of fear and a sense, and Tim can certainly speak to this in greater depth, but that the net has widened in terms of who is perceived as a priority for immigration. So President Trump put out some executive orders at the beginning of his term, actually before the Muslim ban order, that set a almost frankly limitless list of priorities of folks who were being targeted for immigration enforcement. Under the Obama administration, the line that the Obama administration liked to use was felons, not families. Essentially attempting at least to try to prioritize folks who had been convicted of certain crimes for deportation enforcement. The Trump administration's line is anyone who has committed any activity that could be considered a crime, anyone who has been charged with but not convicted of a crime, anyone who has been convicted of any crime whatsoever. That is a massive number of people. And even though, sorry, do you want to?
No. And I think, truthfully, I think that they're, one of the pieces that I think is sort of, I think even goes broader, right, is that they define, I mean, they use these terms, right? Like criminal has become this word that means so much more than I think maybe the common parlance means. And so, I mean, I think, right, and I think the way that we read that, and it seems like ICE will read that, is essentially everyone is, right? Because, it's a federal misdemeanor to have entered the United States without documentation, and so therefore everyone, right, is who has, is essentially a criminal, right? So
legally isn't true, right? Legally, you can be present in the country without having committed any crime, but that is not a nuance that is in these orders. Agreed.
So I guess I agree with, in some sense, right, that it is the priority is that there is no more priorities, right?
Yep. In terms of what that means for schools, right, the direct day-to-day, are you going to start seeing immigration raids in schools? The answer so far is probably not, but exercise vigilance, right? And this is an area where I struggle with how to frame this for folks. The Department of Homeland Security promulgated in 2011 internal guidance memos that says that ICE will not engage in enforcement activities, and that means any enforcement activity. It means arrest, surveillance, questioning, detention in quote-unquote sensitive locations. So that's that little flyer with the pretty little graphics, right? And among those sensitive locations are schools. Neither the executive order that the president signed nor the enforcement memos that were signed by the DHS secretary rescind that guidance affirmatively. There were, though, leaked drafts of guidance which would have rescinded all Obama era, actually all prior guidance on immigration and customs enforcement. And so the actual drafts that got signed, the actual memos that got signed, simply rescinded contradictory guidance, but it isn't clear yet how DHS is going to determine what's contradictory and what's not. Some of the administration's public statements have been that these sensitive locations guidance remains in effect. That said, though, the sensitive locations guidance has limits, right? It does not protect, for example, students who are on their way to the school bus. It doesn't protect students who are driving themselves to school. It prevents DHS from routinely conducting enforcement activities on school campus. But that is as far as it goes. And again, that's internal guidance, which means that it could get rescinded. I have no reason to believe that's going to happen in the immediate future, but that's where things are.
Also, in addition, I think, like Tim mentioned, something really important, right, is the expanded criminalization of our communities. What it means to be a quote-unquote criminal has expanded. In addition to that, it's also really important to note that some of the memos include hiring more enforcement agents, right, and that's something that a lot of our communities are fearing at the moment. It also, in certain deportation process, in addition to enlisting local law enforcement in, certain states to help make arrests on behalf of the Department of Homeland Security as well.